We're Logan and Kelly and Ollie, and this is our 2015 Chevy Express 2500.
We built out this van with the goal to make it as simple and cheap as possible, while still looking good and fulfilling all of our home on the road needs.
This entire build costs around $3,000. That includes solar, heater, a fridge, and it looks pretty good.
We'll give you the tour and show you a few things that we did to cut down on costs.
The first thing you see when you open these doors is this cabinet. This is our kitchen. To keep things simple, we used plywood countertop with this epoxy coating. And our fruit basket is just held on with museum wax. Over here, we have a drop-in stainless steel sink. We like this soap dispenser because that way we just don't have a bottle of soap rolling around somewhere. Over here is our faucet. It doubles as our water pump. And we just used a hole saw to drill a groove in here so that it can rest right on the countertop. It's rechargeable, so we added this charger port to make it really easy for charging. Down here, we didn't go with cabinet doors for a few reasons. One, it's a lot simpler to just have these curtains, and it's a lot cheaper. Another reason is we have this 5-gallon water jug, and it's a lot easier to replace having this flush and not having doors to work around. Over here, you'll see this paper towel dispenser. It's ratcheting. It keeps the paper towels from spinning out as we drive. Over here's our plumbing where it goes down and out of the van. We have a waterless P-trap. The waterless P-trap's great. It lets water out while keeping the smells and the bugs from coming in. For any trips longer than a weekend, we do like to have these shelves in here. That way we have a lot more cooking supplies and food.
And over here on this side of the cabinet, we have our trash can. There are 3 things that are really common for people to forget about completely while they're doing their van build, and that's a trash can, dirty laundry, and somewhere to put your shoes. In our first van build, we didn't think about where to put a trash can, so we just had a Walmart bag hanging from the driver's armrest the entire time, and that was kind of the worst. We have this trash can next to the cabinet, and we added little magnets on either side and got metal adhesive strips that just stick to the side of this cabinet at the right height, so that way the trash can stays in place when we drive. The magnets were actually something we added to the trash cans after driving the van for several weeks. We realized that when Logan was driving, the trash can would stay pinched in place, but when I was driving, the seat was so far forward, it would just slide out anytime we took a turn. Also, under the trash can is our go-to spot for our stovetop. Having a removable stovetop really simplified things because we didn't have to add a propane tank or plumb for propane. Not to mention it saves us all this countertop space that we can use during the day when we're not cooking. When we're ready to use this, we can set it on top of our countertop to cook inside or bring it outside when cooking on nice days. Also, you can see our trash cans floating right now. We did add 2 different heights of metal strips, so that way, if our stovetop is not in there, our trash can will still stay in place with the magnets. We did a previous van build that's almost identical to this setup, except for this is the extended version. Because of that, we have a little more space for things like these drawers. The first drawer is all things utensils, and the second drawer is plates, bowls, pans, etc. Also, I should point out, we did add 1 pull force latch on each drawer, which is all we need to keep the drawers from sliding out while we're driving. Also for our plates, we recently upgraded to these stainless steel toddler plates, which we love because we're trying to avoid microplastics, and since they have this lip on the side, it works as bowls. And then underneath the drawers, we have this whole empty space where we put bigger, clunkier items. We did have to cut out this notch where the fuel nut comes in from the outside. That way the cabinet could still be snug against the wall. We have a bin for small grab and go things like our vacuum or first aid kit, vitamins, and all this other space for things like our toiletry kits.
Over here, we have this long bench. It gives us a lot of sitting room, and it's perfect height for the chest fridge. We opted for the chest fridge not to put drawer slides on, but to just have it on this rug. And I added this bungee just to keep the fridge from coming out when we're driving. If you know anything about camper fridges, they can be wild expensive. We found this brand a few years back. It costs less than $200. It works great, and it's an awesome little machine.
Next week, we're going to be posting a video that's just all the budget hacks from this van build boiled down into one video. But while you're here and we're talking about how to cut down on van build costs, let me point out what we did for our walls. The walls in this van are made out of the most rough cut, cheap, ugly plywood that we could find. And then we spackled over it with drywall mud. And before y'all say, it's gonna crack, we've done this in multiple van builds now. Our last one, which is almost identical to this one, we've been renting out every summer. It was built with the same plywood, drywall spackling walls. And despite having renters in it all summer long for the last 3 years, there's no cracking to be had. I did make a YouTube short showing what we did to prevent any future cracking, so if you're interested in that video, I'll link it in the description. The roof is just 2 sheets of 1/4-inch plywood sanded really soft and smooth with a couple coats of polyacrylic on it. We do have a 2-way air fan that's really simple and easy to use, but it is a game changer for cooling down the van on warm days. Also, I should point out that part of our $3,000 budget for this van build includes the insulation. We insulated with the 2-inch polyiso foam boards, and we used the Great Stuff cans to fill any cracks or gaps.
For the bed that we chose for this, we had a few non-negotiables. One, we didn't want it to eat up all of our living space. 2, we wanted it to be comfy. We considered doing one of those dinettes that turned into a bed, but it would eat up a section of our storage, and we didn't like that. So that was another non-negotiable. The last non-negotiable is we didn't want to put much effort into setting the bed up every night. We couldn't mount the bed side by side because after installation, the van width is only about 5'9". It's a bed by night and a couch by day. The mattress is a 5-inch memory foam trifold mattress, and the trifold is what makes sliding it out into a bed possible. We've bought this same bed for several build-outs, including one of our rental vans. Over and over, we get comments about how comfortable this bed is. And when we're ready for the day, it's super easy to slide the bed back into couch mode, and I added these latches to keep it from sliding forward while we're driving. We've considered doing a full tutorial on this bed. However, it'll have to wait until fall when we have our next van build project. If that's something you'd like to see, let us know in the comments and we'll make plans to do it this fall. Let's talk about the mechanics of this bed design. We used this same bed design in our last camper van. This time we made a few tweaks. The drawer action of this bed is made up of alternating slats. We went with 2-inch strips of wood for those slats. If it was any wider, you'd start to feel it and it'd be uncomfortable. Most importantly, we added 1/4-inch plywood to the top and bottom of these slats. That keeps the slats equally distant. It supports the bed a little more, and it keeps your phone from sliding down underneath into the dark abyss of storage. Unfortunately, we do know that from personal experience.
So Logan pointed out that we added these plywood sheets to the bed design, which have been great, but it has led to us getting the same comment over and over again. People saying you need to ventilate your mattress or it'll mold, or cut some holes in that wood, otherwise it will mold. And while we appreciate the concern, this is one of the reasons why this bed design is so cool. Number one is every night when we pull this bed out, you have 2-inch channels of air going all along the bottom of the mattress. Ventilation. And 2, with this being a trifold mattress, it is being put up and down every day, multiple times a day. I would argue that no other mattress gets this kind of ventilation on the daily. If you want to build a bed just like this, but you don't want to wait until fall when our video comes out, we do have a Build-A-Bed breakdown PDF that explains the entire step-by-step process with blueprint, measurements, tips and tricks for success. So if you're interested in that, I'll also link that in the description of this video. Moving on from the bed design, I do want to point out that we put these cute little accent lights hanging from above, mainly for vibes, because how fun is that? So cute. And we did install phone chargers on either side of the bed since that's the main time when we charge our devices. Next to our charger on this side, we have the thermostat for our diesel heater. Diesel heaters are so efficient, they can run 36 hours on 1 gallon of fuel. And with how small this space is, it gets toasty warm really fast. Our thermostat is here, but you can see this is where we routed the heat to come out at. And on a budget note, this was not a splurge. This was maybe $80 and it works incredibly well. In one of our older ProMaster builds, we bought the name brand Webasto, which was like $1 or $2 grand. Unfortunately, we had constant problems with it. We tried to fix it ourselves, but there was not a lot of information online. And when we tried to go to a professional, there weren't a lot of resources in the US. While on the other hand, these knockoff cheap Chinese diesel heaters, we've had no problems with. And anytime we do bump into an issue or a question, we can look it up online, and these things have a cult following to them. So you can find tons of forums and answers online just from a quick Google search. In fact, if you add yourself to one of these Chinese diesel heater Facebook groups, you will have thousands of people who can help you out. It's great.
On this wall, we have another bench for the bed to slide on. Here we have a hidden cubby that we put our dog stuff in. Dog toy, food, jacket, a leash, whatever we need to put in there. And a quick side note, if you want a van life with a dog or cat, we swear by this water bowl. It handles bumps and turns really well without splashing water all over your van. There's probably other brands like it, but it basically just has a floating piece on top that keeps water from splashing out. One thing to note, this thing does get really stinky if you don't wash it every week or so. Here's our book nook. We wanted it deep enough to have a full notebook in here, as well as our laptop. When we rent this out, we have this full of Alaska tourism books and our camper van manual. Around the corner, we do have this carbon monoxide alarm. I think any van that has a heater in it should have one of these.
Okay, these doors, we should have done something fun with the empty space. We debated cutting these out and adding windows, but that would have added a lot to our already limited budget. So instead, neither of them got insulated and they're just plain boring metal. So if you guys have any fun ideas of what we could do with this space, please let me know in the comments. I thought about putting cork in there and using it like a bulletin board, but I don't know. Tell me if you have any fun, clever ideas that wouldn't cost $1 million.
We added these hooks. They fold down, which is perfect. So when we're not using them, they're not in our way. It's great for wet things to be able to dry. They'll drip right down on this lower step, and it's slanted so the water will just run outside. When we don't have wet things hanging here, this step is our go-to shoe storage. It's great for when we have muddy or sandy boots. We can just leave them right here and it doesn't track through the van, and it's really easy to clean up the next day.
All right, and I'm just gonna glaze over the front part because I feel like that's the most boring part of a van tour video. But I do want to point out a couple things that we added that we swear by with every van build, and a couple things that came stock with the van that we haven't had in other builds, and it's been really nice. So first off, I'll go over the two things we swear by. One is this umbrella windshield cover. I mainly love this because it blocks out the windshield in one go.
It makes setup and takedown really easy, secures our privacy, and blocks out light.
Second, on the same topic of blocking light, we keep these in the driver door pocket. These are cheap magnetic window covers that we got from Amazon, and they work like a charm. Because no way am I dropping hundreds of dollars on those custom ones that fit to your window, when for $20 I can have the same result. You just open the door, snap the magnets onto the metal, and then close the door again. Done. Easy. I know the silver side is supposed to be on the outside to help reflect sunlight, but I like having the black side facing out. So if someone comes up to the van or even just happens to park next to it, it just looks like a super dark window tint. And now the two things that came stock in this van that none of our other vans did, not even our big old Pro Masters. One is a rear view mirror backup camera. This was a work van before we got it, so I think it was actually installed by that company. It doesn't just show video when we're backing up, but also constantly while we're driving. Honestly, it has been so nice. The second thing is this 120 volt plug. This plug only works when the engine's turned on, unlike the rest of our build that runs completely off of solar, but it is nice to have the option to power up things like my laptop while we're driving. Also, I should point out this giant cubby. It is huge and really deep, so we use it as our everything nook, but primarily snacks. I will say, if we were to add any other upgrades to this van, it would be a swivel seat for this passenger seat. But we weirdly had a hard time finding a generic swivel seat that would work for this van. All right, let's move on outside, show you the back, and a few changes we made to the outside vehicle itself.
This is the first rig we've painted. This was an old work van, so it was a good idea to get rid of any rust and paint over that just to make sure that it would last longer. It was an intimidating process, but it turned out really good. We did add this little fuel door for our heater. It is missing the handle, we gotta replace that. We used a 2-liter diesel tank that came with our heater. I like this setup. We didn't want any diesel spillage inside of the van. And so this makes it so if it does spill, it spills outside, and we can fill up the tank while we're filling up the gasoline. The only other thing that we added besides the solar was this tow package right here. We got that at a junkyard, like a pick and pull, and it was a pretty good deal. Now onto the storage.
Back here, we have our garage space
That we were so adamant about keeping when we were designing the bed.
We made it tall enough that it could fit most people's suitcases when this is being rented out, but it's also a good size for totes. This space holds a lot of stuff. We each have a tote of clothes, extra shoes, adventure gear, backpacks, jack, jumper cables, etc. Once we have all this stuff out, we can show you the permanent fixtures. First, on this side is where our heater and diesel tank live. The warm air is routed inside the van where I showed you earlier, and the exhaust is routed out the bottom outside the van.
And over here, we have all things solar and electrical. We have a 250 watt solar panel on the roof, and that goes into our solar charge controller, and that tops off our battery, which is plenty of power to keep our battery happy and charged up 24 hours a day. And then over here, we have our 12 volt fuse block, and we like this one because if one of the fuses goes bad, it'll light up right next to the fuse. So it's really easy to know which fuse is bad and pull that fuse out. Also, we keep this jar of fuses right here out of the way if we need it.
We probably could have gotten some of those same magnetic sheet covers that we used for the front windows for the back, but we wanted something that could fold down to see out when we were driving, and something that was a little thicker to offer just a little more insulation since it's right next to the bed. Again, no way I'm dropping up to $100 on those custom ones, so we made our own foldable window covers with Reflectix, black fabric, and magnets. I actually do have a YouTube short tutorial teaching you how to make these yourself, so I'll also link that short in the description of this video.
And that's it. $3,000 can turn this old crusty work van into a nice home on wheels. We'll be linking all the things that we mentioned in this van, like the fridge, the solar, the one-way P-trap, the heater, the trifold mattress. That'll all be linked in the description down below.
Let us know what you think, and if you want the blueprints for this simple design that includes the cabinet, the entire van layout, the bed, we'll also link that in the video description. We documented this entire van build on YouTube Shorts, so if you want more details on each step of the process, you can check those out. We're also super active on TikTok and Instagram, and we're just starting our Facebook, so you can follow us there too.
We have some other big projects coming up, like a full RV renovation from the 80s, so stay tuned for that. Until next time.